Let me cross now to the former Deputy Leader of the Federal Liberal Party, former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, who's been outspoken against anti-Semitism over the past few years. Thanks for joining us, Josh. Tell us how this has just, what we've seen unfolding in Bondi, a place you know well. This is the sum of all our fears, isn't it?
Well, this is our worst nightmare, and as you rightly pointed out in your introduction, many of us have been warning that this day will come if the government did not take sufficient and strong action to safeguard its citizens. But now we're mourning the loss of 16 lives, including 10-year-old Matilda, Holocaust survivors, rabbis. It's unthinkable, but in many ways it was predictable, because it was not an isolated or spontaneous response to the event of October the 7th. What we have seen since 2.5 years ago is just act of violence and harassment and intimidation and hatred after act. And it's all culminated in this horrific massacre on our national icon, Bondi Beach.
Josh Frydenberg, let me pick you up there and correct you. We do not mourn 16 people, we mourn 15 people. We do not mourn the terrorist in this case. But you're right, 16 deaths, 15 innocent people killed. Now, Josh, you have warned about this for 2 years. You've been so prominent on this. You were instrumental in the Sky News documentary about anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitism summit that Sky News hosted just up the road here. What is it most? What are the top few things that Anthony Albanese has failed to do and what he could do tomorrow?
Well, as you know, in that documentary, I interviewed John Howard, Chris, and I asked John Howard what would he have done if he was Prime Minister at the time of October the 7th. And he said his first call would be to the opposition leader, Kim Beazley, and he would ask Kim Beazley to stand with him in the Prime Ministerial courtyard and to send a message to every Australian that these were the red lines that were not to be crossed. But that has not been done by our Prime Minister. So when there's marches over the bridge, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, people are waving Hamas and Hezbollah and ISIS flags and chanting death to the IDF, all without sanction. And when we see on the steps of the Opera House in the hours after the Hamas attack, people celebrating it, and as you say, Muslim and religious leaders celebrating the attack, there has not been sufficient sanction. And then we see daily, weekly protests across our cities, all of which are acting as incubators of hate. And then on our campuses, Jewish students and Jewish staff are harassed and intimidated. Jewish artists like Deborah Conway are cancelled and doxxed. Jewish businesses are boycotted. Day after day, there's unacceptable conduct in our country, yet our government seems to be tolerating the intolerable. And that is what has occurred over the last 2.5 years, and that is what has culminated in the massacre of Bondi.
Just before I let you go, Josh, I want to show you what we've heard, some comments from Jewish leader David Ossip. Have a look.
2 years ago, on the forecourt of the Opera House, anti-Semites chanted, "F the Jews," and "Where are the Jews?" Sadly, last night they found the Jews. For 2 years, people have paraded in our streets and universities, calling for the Intifada to be globalised, a catchphrase which means kill Jews wherever you find them. Last night, the Intifada was globalised.
Josh Frydenberg, will you be seeking a meeting with Anthony Albanese and let him know what he needs to do?
I'll leave that to the Jewish leadership of our community, which no doubt is engaging as we speak with our intelligence and security agencies. But the point that must be made is that everything has to be on the table and everything has to change from here. Nothing can be the same. And you're right, gun reform is important, but it's by no means the only response. The Prime Minister, the Human Rights Commission, our leaders at universities, our religious leaders need to take on the hatred, the vitriol that is just commonplace now and normalised in our society, because what we've seen over the last 2.5 years is a lack of action has only emboldened those who hate and those who harm. And enough is enough. It's time the Prime Minister stood up, he led, he took personal responsibility, and there was accountability for him, for his Home Affairs ministers, and for everyone else who has questions to answer after this horrible, horrible attack at our iconic Bondi Beach.
Yep. Spot on, Josh Frydenberg. Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, this is a terrible massacre that's occurred on Anthony Albanese's watch despite 2 years of warning.